Aloha. Welcome to Return on Wellness, a web series brought to you by Olympian Meeting.
All right. Hello and welcome to this episode of Return on Wellness. I think I'm going to call this one IMEX the Hangover.
Fits. We're in Vegas.
Yeah, it fits. It's also the morning after the last day of IMEX. And somehow I got the one and only Tahira, Endean, to sit down and talk with us about wellness and IMEX and all the things, which I feel like the last thing I'd want to do after a week-long program is this.
Maybe the second last.
Fair enough. So thank you so much. I feel very honored and flattered, so I really appreciate you doing this. This year was the largest year in IMEX American history, right?
More than 17 registered and more than 15 who walked across the threshold.
Wow. And okay, attrition-wise, that's phenomenal in itself. How many were last year? Do you remember?
No.
Okay.
Less. It was definitely the biggest.
Less.
Yeah.
Great. I went to
and to be fair, we would actually compare more to 2019 because 21, 22 were
recovering.
Well, the world was recovering.
Yeah.
We all changed so much.
Agreed.
So, yeah, but higher than 2019.
But blew out 2019, I'm guessing. Yeah. I went to the Skift thing on Smart Monday.
Yes.
And when they said how many people are new, it seemed like 2/3 of the room raised their hands.
Yeah.
So this is the question I don't know if you know or not. Do you know a percentage approximately of how many people were first-time attendees this year?
I don't know the percentage the first time. I can tell you though, we had more than 600 people favorite the first timers session, and more than 100 show up for the first timers tour.
Okay.
So that's pretty good actually.
Yeah.
I think the last time we did a first timers tour, there was about 12. So.
Okay. So for those people,
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everyone who you are and how you got started in events and kind of how you ended up here.
All right. It's a really long story. So
we only have an hour. So
okay, I'm Tahira Endean. I am currently the head of program for IMEX. I was a hairstylist, and I loved being a hairstylist. It was the most amazing career. I'd wanted to do it since I was 6 years old. I took beauty culture in high school, just like Frenchie. And I managed a salon, and I worked for a hair color manufacturer, did training, did shows, and then I couldn't cut hair anymore. So by the time that I was 26, I was having 2 major surgeries it's called thoracic outlet syndrome. So oddly, I had an extra rib, which your first rib right into your collarbone. And it basically, when they did the 2 surgeries, the bones had grown so close together that they had grown through my ulnar nerve.
Oh.
And so I can't do any arm sports. I can't do anything that's gripping. I can't still. So after the surgeries, I sat down with the surgeon, so excited to, for him to say, "You're all better now." And he said, "You'll never cut hair again." And I don't remember anything after that statement. And so then eventually I went to school. So I came into events backwards in that I started with an event and convention diploma. And then
why do you say backwards?
Because nobody comes in with very few people, very small percentage of the industry comes into any aspect of our industry with education. So
fair enough. Okay.
I did an event and convention management diploma, worked for a PCO, eventually went to work more. I wanted to do things that were more creative, went to work for a destination management company. That closed suddenly one day, went to work for an incentive agency. While I was there, again, when we talk about people coming in backwards, I went and did a hospitality management degree, and most of the people in that room with me managed hotels. So what had happened for them is that they had all hit the glass ceiling within their large hotel organizations. So they were all back doing an executive degree in hospitality management. And yeah, I just finished a master's in creativity and change leadership in May, which was
awesome. Congratulations.
Another fun part of the educational journey. So I also have taught for 20 years. And I would say that of probably the 1,000 people that I've taught, there's probably about 15 that I still see in the industry. So
wow. Okay.
So it's just.
Yeah. Do you think you got maybe the bug a little bit, or the inkling towards that type of business, the event side of things, when you would do the shows and stuff when you were in the hair
and I just
industry?
thought it would be super glamorous and fun. I mean, it's obviously a very glamorous and fun job. So,
Especially the travel portion.
especially the travel portion, so I think my
Wonderful.
average is about half the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then you ended up, when I met you, you were at Site.
Yes. Really?
I think,
No.
well, we met in
When
2019,
I met you,
right?
weren't we on a secret family reunion?
Yes. I thought you were with Site at that time. No?
No. I joined Site right after that.
Oh, got it.
So I joined Site in November 2019.
Oh, like as soon as we got back.
Anyhow, maybe I was with Site. Maybe I was, yeah.
Whatever.
So, yeah.
Where were you before that?
Before Site, I built out a huge trade show and conference, tech summit actually. So
Oh, nice.
I had gone from working with what was then Quick Mobile, which was now acquired by Cvent.
I remember Quick Mobile.
Yeah.
Quick Mobile is the first mobile app I ever had to help program.
Oh, yeah.
I was at Streamline Events.
Oh yeah.
And we had this this
Streamline
client.
was a great partner for us.
Yeah, we had this client who they wanted to do a mobile app, and we for some reason I got tasked with building all the spreadsheets and the logic of how everything was going to flow and the decision trees and all that. Gave me a whole new appreciation for mobile apps. That was 2012.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
So I worked there in 2014, 2015.
Okay.
And I went from there to, I was recruited by the Innovation Council in British Columbia. So we actually built a technology summit for our government for 3 years and grew it from sort of, 2,500 to 5,000 to almost 9,000 people in the third year. And that was 2018. So it was just time to, I had done that for a few years. And so it was just time to take a little break and decide what I wanted to do. So I traveled for a few months. So it must have been was it 2018 or 2019 that we did that?
It was 2019.
Okay.
Because remember?
So then 2018, I did join Site at the end of 2018. So I traveled for 6 months. And it was, we got to the end of the year and my husband was just like, so how in debt are we going to be from this travel that you've been doing? And I was like, oh yeah, no, we're good. I'm like, because as I was traveling, people would be like, oh, can you write a strategic plan for me? Or can you, do, so sort of basically people would keep hiring me to do things. And then I just kept traveling.
So you were a digital nomad before it was cool.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Before it was a thing.
Fair enough. And along the way, you wrote a book?
2017,
right?
Actually. So, and I would say that intentional event design, our professional opportunity, and this is how not to write a book.
Okay. Take note, how not to write a book.
How not to write a book. So somebody said, do you have your article on blah, blah, blah that you'd written for so-and-so? And I was like, I couldn't find it. And I thought, this is so dumb that I keep writing things for other people, which I was happy to do, but I can't even find the information that I'm writing. Like, what is going on? So I'm going to put all the, the things that I want to say into a book. And then someone said to me super snarkily, to have a book, you have to have 50,000 words. I was like, great. I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, sounds like a lot of words, whatever, so.
I would say I didn't know that you have to have 50,000 words to write a book.
No, and I don't think that you do. There's some books that are probably lovely that are 10,000 words and some that are fabulous that are 200,000 words.
Like the Odyssey.
Like the Odyssey, like
I'm
anything
sure
by Ken Follett has, the books are fantastic. Those are more than 50,000 words.
Right.
So this is how not to write a book. So I took everything that I could find that I'd written in 2 years and I dumped it into a document and I was like, oh, 80,000 words done. No, not even close to done. So then I took out all of the things that I didn't want to be an expert on. I didn't want to be an expert on sustainability. There's people who are way smarter than me doing that much better. I've been involved in the sustainability side of events for 25 years. We wrote Green Meeting Guidelines in 1995 for Vancouver.
Wow.
So I've been with on the Events Industry Council.
I can't believe you wrote that when you were 10.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah,
I know.
You were a very smart child.
I was a very smart child, like definitely ahead of my time on that. So, but I've spent since then with the Event Industry Council, I've been through 2 iterations of the book. I've written, a lot of when they wrote the ninth edition, which really had a sustainability slant through the whole thing for the CMP study guide, wrote a lot of that. So yeah, that's always been kind of an important thing. So how not to write a book is to not just throw a bunch of words into a paper and hope for the best.
Fair enough.
So I sent it to a friend and said, who is a very good writer and knows me well. And she's like, it's really good information, she said, but it's literally just like your brain dumped out on paper. It's too much. It's like, it's just too much. You need to tell more stories.
Because it literally was.
It was too much. And so she said, put more stories in it and maybe break it up this way. And that's what I did. And I went back at the end of 2021 as we were coming out of the pandemic and looked at it again. I was like, oh, this is going to probably be crap. It's not going to be useful. And then I went back and very un-Canadian girl like was like, wow, this is actually super useful information. This is a really good book for people because it just really looks at how do humans show up at events and go from, and then how can you design things for them to show up with, brain forward, people first thinking. So
yeah, I love it. And then you were at site, then you came to IMEX.
mm-hmm.
I think personally, your job is terrifying to me because the last people I would want to plan an event for is event professionals.
Yeah.
Because we are the worst when it comes to being critical.
We are certainly demanding and critical. So you have to have a pretty thick skin. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. How do you prepare for that? And or I'm wondering if it's just when you're intentional about thinking about who your attendee really is, it sets you up for success.
So I just cry a lot. No, that's not true. No, it's not true.
That's probably what I would do.
So no, it is. But I mean, I think any audience is demanding. So as long as you're thinking about your audience first, and every audience is different. So if you think audience first and you think about being, really it's people-centric, purpose-driven. So what are we doing? What's going to make sense? Is everybody going to like it? Absolutely not. Is it going to work for everybody? Of course not. Is it going to work for the highest common denominator of the people who are attending? Great. That's what I'm looking for. But if you think about SITE, MPI, PCMA, SEMA, ILEA, pick any group of event planners, not only are we doing it for the most demanding audience, we're doing it with no budget. Right. So we're going out to our partners and saying, how would you like to show up? What would you like to do to show off in front of this audience? How can we work together to have a great partnership and make that happen? And how can we make sure that you leave having the most positive experience? And so it becomes the conversations that you have. And quite honestly, if somebody criticizes something or doesn't like it, I just really have to remind them that everything that we're doing is with in-kind or cash sponsors, but particularly the events are done with in-kind partners. And so if they don't like the way somebody presented a food or don't like particular entertainment, if that's the way that somebody wanted to represent themselves to an audience that they know the audience,
right?
Sometimes we just have to take a little bit of this with a grain of salt and step back and understand why. But I would also say that in my tenure at site and continuing to this day, the experiences were phenomenal. We had great education. The thing that I really like about site is that it really is a family. It's a community of people who many people have been members for a long time, but we work really hard at being not cliquey, which is very difficult, as we know in any association. Doesn't matter if we're doctors, lawyers, nurses, banana peelers. You're always going to get that contingency of people that know each other. That's part of an association, building that community. But it's also about bringing along that next part of the community, bringing up the young leaders and bringing up the people, and ensuring that you're making the effort to include people. So for me, our favorite events were our small events, the ones that we did when we launched Site Incentive Summit in Europe. It was just, a 50, 60 person program, but the connections you made with people were very much like that secret family reunion where you didn't all know each other when you went in, but because you had the opportunity to have just those nice collisions with people doing interesting experiences, you all left as family. I mean, we still have a WhatsApp group from what we've now established as 2019 today that is very active and very supportive community of each other. And anytime that you can establish that within an organization, it's really special.
I feel like that 50 to 75 person is such a
magic
sweet spot for. There's enough variety that you can find because inevitably you still find, your closer people, right?
Of
And you
course.
find, but at the same time, you still get to know everyone.
Yeah.
Um, but there's enough diversity there that you can always find someone. And yeah, that was such a transformational trip. I'm so glad it happened when it did, because um, I know I didn't have a group like that going into the
Yeah.
pandy, and it was a lifeline during it. So I love that. Let's transition a little bit into wellness. You've obviously, when you saw me today or a couple days ago, you were very excited about how many push-ups you could do now.
10 on a
10.
good day.
We're not going to document it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you have been on a little bit of a wellness journey yourself. One of the things I'm curious about is, what was the first event you went to where you experienced wellness, or were you the one that had to bring wellness into that event?
Yeah, I think it's been something that we've done for like honestly for such a long time, and for me it goes back actually to 1996. So and even before that, so doing all of the work that we started doing in 1995 around sustainability. Sustainability is, it's three legs, right? It's people, planet, profit. If you're not doing it smartly and having a profit, you can't invest in anything. If you're not taking care of the people so that they want to take care of the things around them, nothing's going to happen. And if we don't take care of the planet, we see what's happening.
Yes.
We're living actually not taking care of our planet. Um, so we have to make all those small steps, but taking care of the people. And then, so starting in actually 1993, we won the bid to plan the 11th International Conference on AIDS, which was coming to Vancouver. And 1995 was when all the antiretrovirals came out. So we had, Joe Average and Tico Kerr and people who um, were given a death sentence.
Right.
And then antiretrovirals came up. And so they were the people who created the artwork, who worked with the doctors to come up with our One World, One Hope. But we had to plan to have 1,500 of 15,000 people living with AIDS in a time when people thought, well, if somebody breathes on me, if somebody touches me, if I'm in the 10-foot vicinity of somebody with AIDS, so which we all know now is not true. But we really had to look at how did we fundamentally take care of people who were potentially very sick when they arrived. And then we thought, well, if we're taking care of the people who are, you know, I mean, we had a Hall C was a medical center, which is, I don't know, 30,000 square feet
Right.
on site of one of, we took over the city at that time in Vancouver. That was the whole city. It was the convention center, the stadium, the
Yeah. Yeah.
university, but if we're going to take care of people who aren't well, how are we going to take care of the people who are well? How are we going to provide them education that is going to make them not scared? How are we going to make sure that they're eating and sleeping and getting enough water and getting the right food through that time as well? Because the other people who are attending this event are the caregivers. They're the
Right.
physicians, they're the nurses, they're the people who are working in advocacy, they're the NGOs. They're coming from 120 of the world's 100 and, however many countries.
Right.
So it really began then, and then just became sort of embedded into the things we're doing. And I think, you and I agree that wellness is not, we added yoga at 6 a.m.
Right.
So it's about finding all of the different things that can happen. And I think the IMEX has absolutely been a leader for a long time. They were, the first to sort of really prominently bring a Be Well Lounge to an event.
By the way, was that here this year?
I'm going to explain what we did here this year.
Okay. All right. We can get to that in
Yeah.
a couple questions. But please continue.
Yeah, so I mean, it's always been part of it. So how are we, and then as we got into people are gluten free and dairy free, and then all the things that people are, so we started to get a lot more allergies and sensitivities as well as preferences. But it's really about thinking about how are we balancing, some rest and some free time with programming time. How are we making sure that your meals are healthy, making sure that people have I was doing mocktails also way before they were cool, because not everybody wants to have alcohol,
Right.
or can have alcohol,
Or
um,
should.
or should. Yes, and there's that. But if they want to, then can
Yeah.
also be an option. So I think that it's about how do you personalize experiences for people to have their best. Traveling is hard, And so how do you provide things that are going to help people feel their best while they're away from home, while they're in unfamiliar places? Maybe they're jet lagged. There's just so many things that go into it that if we're not taking care of people, we're not going to allow them the opportunity to be successful in meeting people, in finding collisions and collaborations with people, in putting their best self forward so that, you know, we can have that experience that
Yeah.
we want to have when we go somewhere. We've all arrived, you know, to a, well, maybe not all, maybe I've arrived a little bit grumpy to a hotel front desk without my luggage, or, you know, and just having somebody who's kind to you. So if you go to a registration desk and you can't find your name badge, having somebody that's kind to you can
Right.
really make the difference.
Yeah. I know when I sat down with JT earlier this year, and we really talked about the power of agency, and that's really that's what helps people feel accepted, right? Is when they get to, because maybe they're like, you know what, I'm gonna go to IMEX, and this is my time to blow off steam and relax, and I
I don't
want
think
to.
anybody comes to IMEX to think they're going to relax.
Well, I like in the sense of like I'm not going to worry about what I eat.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat what I eat. I'm going to have some great food. I'm going to have some drinks. I'm going to drink some great wine. I'm going to have some fancy whiskey, whatever. And maybe that's their IMEX experience. And I think that's the big thing. The thing with wellness is when you start telling people what you think wellness is supposed to be for them, that's when you hit those walls.
Yeah.
I'm curious about you and what you do to keep yourself sane and happy and healthy. You probably don't do CrossFit like I do.
I
I
don't
mean,
do CrossFit.
just powerlifting.
I'll tell you
Is that
why.
all you do
I'll tell
anymore?
you why I don't do CrossFit. It's because of losing a producer to. She ended up with 2 years of a back injury that she took her to recover from, but that was maybe 2012. But I'm obviously very bad at dates. But we had a summer where we ended up with two and a half of us um, producing 48 events in 47 days. So,
Wow.
sort of as a DMC, we were in, Whistler, Banff, Vancouver. There was a bit bananas because we had to pick up a entire person's, because she
Yeah.
did a jump squat. And so that was the last time I did a jump squat. So I'm never,
Like
ever,
like an
ever,
air jump squat,
I'm never going to do a jump squat
or like
or a
with
burpee again in my entire life. It's just not going to happen. So, I would say that over the course of my life, I've done a bunch of different things,
yeah.
but um, certainly in the last few years, I I lift weights, I do spin classes, I do yoga.
Great.
So yeah, usually 6 days a week I do something.
How do you do something 6 days a week? How important is that time to do that to you?
It's really important, mentally and physically.
Yeah.
I travel about half the year, and so if you're not staying healthy and trying to travel, it's impossible.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's
Do you have any personal hacks that work really well for you that you like there's something that like you look for? Like I know there's some people who are big into Peloton and they pick their hotels based on if
mm,
there's Pelotons or not. Like anything like that.
I don't always get that opportunity. So I do always try to find a hotel that has at least a fitness center, even if it's not very big. I used to run. I can't run anymore because my knee got old. Um, but I loved running because you could go somewhere and then see everything really fast.
Right.
So you could see a city and see so much more of a city faster running than walking.
Right.
So I do actually miss that. I don't eat beige food. That's my big.
You don't eat what?
Beige food.
Beige food.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So anything the color of my shirt, you don't eat.
it.
Okay.
No. So not that I never ever eat it. I'm not like a crazy miracle worker person. But you stand in front of any coffee shop in the entire world and look at the food, and you can usually have one thing if you're not going to eat beige food. So and because beige food is generally nutrition low, calorie high.
Tracy Stuckrath said, uh, calorie dense, nutritionally deficient, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So same.
Yeah.
Same thing, different words. So so I just try to find food with color, basically, and eat food with color. So and I will, when I do eat, bread and butter, which is amazing. There's nothing better than warm bread and delicious butter. It's going to probably be in Europe where the bread is crusty on the outside and delicious on the inside, and the butter is, I don't know, made from cows that like eat rainbows for breakfast. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like I'm never going to have it,
Right.
but I'm going to choose my time and place.
I understand your point. Do croissants break the mold a little bit? Like, will you make the if it's in the right place?
If it's in a European country and it has chocolate in the middle and it's Sunday morning with a cappuccino at the end of a program, hell yeah.
Okay. All right. We found your criteria. I think one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is trying to find or make the time for those workouts. It's like if the one thing I've heard any time is I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time.
I think that, when I was working at an incentive agency, which was ridiculously busy, we got a trainer in our building. And so that was, so as basically a birthday present to myself, I did training sessions with this guy, and it was 30 minutes. It was never more than 30 minutes. He was just like, people don't have more time than that usually. So why would I insist people do more? So I just learned that you actually don't have to, I mean, if it's a Friday morning, so when I'm at home and um, I work at home, because I work with the IMEX team, I'm the only remote employee for IMEX. I work from 6 till 9 in the morning to do all of my meetings. And then I go to the gym, and then I come home and have a shower and breakfast. And then I do the rest of my work for the day. When I'm in Brighton for work, then I will work from 9 till 5. Like, so I walk to work, which is usually I usually try to find somewhere so it's about a 30-minute walk to work. And then I'll work, and then I'll go and do a class or something at after 5:30. So, because the day is busier to get things done. But it's, thinking about how can you walk somewhere that's a little bit farther so that you're getting some, really just getting some steps in. Finding something that you like. So, my favorite thing that I found in Brighton is there's a great studio that I go to there. And so they do really good HIIT classes, and they do great, kind of a soul cycle. It's called Rocks, but it's the same kind of dark, ride in the dark. But on Fridays, they do like ride in the dark, and then it's like the spin and prosecco. Perfect. Who doesn't want to end Friday with spin and prosecco? Again, I'm not like I'm not a martyr about it. There's things I enjoy.
I think that's the big thing about wellness
80-20.
is yes, and it's not all or nothing.
Yeah.
It's not. I went to this resort in Arizona once that they started because these guys went to Miraval with their wives, and it's completely dry there, and they were like, "What? This isn't my idea of wellness. Like, I want to sit by the fire and have a drink.
Yeah.
Like that. This isn't helping me. This is like putting me through stress and anxiety because this is not what I enjoy. So I love that. Would you be surprised if I told you I taught spin for 8 years?
No, not at all. I would actually expect that you would have taught spin for 8 years, honestly. But I like it because I can't run anymore, but I can spin.
No,
I like the cardio. I like the music. I like it's an easy way to just go and not think.
Yeah.
And I think that it's also, I would, a lot of people will be like, oh, I'll just like binge Netflix. And the way that fundamentally our brains work, just sitting down and doing nothing and watching TV for a whole day does exactly zero for us physiologically. So both, mentally, emotionally, physically, there is nothing about that experience that enriches us. Again, not to say I'm never going to, binge something that for an entire day and just eat popcorn and nothing else. Of course, again, I'm just a normal human who's going to do normal human things. But I know that sitting down and just watching an hour of TV isn't going to replenish me, and doing something that is physically active, that ideally, at home I walk to our gym at 7 minutes. It's not very far. It's great actually. So I can be there in 7 minutes and do something. But even just that first, like getting outside and walking, it's like, oh yeah, there's a tree, there's fresh air, there's, that's going to be the thing that's better. So, during the week when it's busier, I might just go and do a quick class. But on Fridays I'll go and I'll do, an hour of weights, an hour of yoga, spend some time, see some people. It's a very, you take the time to just do a bit more. So and then I can come back and work for 5 hours,
Right.
but feel good about that work and feel just ready mentally and physically to do it. So,
Yeah, I think you're dead on, and thank you for talking about the fact that um, the benefits that your brain gets from it. I think there's sometimes it feels like the term fitness is a bit of a dirty word when it comes to wellness because um, I don't want to discredit mental health by any means, but people tend to prioritize it, which is great. But at the same time, you can do even more good for your mental health by doing things for your physical health.
well, and I want to, the thing is, I'm not definitely didn't start doing this when I was 10. So I'm perfectly fine to say that I'm 57 years old. And when I started going back to the gym again after raising our kids was when I was 50. So, and now are you ready for this, Anka? I can leg press 450 pounds.
She
So
said, "What the fuck?" Just
10
think
times.
so that
So I'll do like
everybody.
180, 270, 360, 450, 360, 270, 180.
That's in. I don't even want to do that. That sounds
So,
terrible.
but
You do like a pyramid and then
but
come back down.
yeah,
Huh, huh.
but it took 2 years before I could even lift a 45-pound weight to put on the machine. So, like anything, fitness is a journey, but we have so many friends at this age who aren't able to walk up hills, who aren't able to, or who are getting hit with things. We have friends with, MS and Parkinson's and rheumatoid arthritis, and they're between 50 and 60 years old, and they're getting these very difficult diseases. And if we aren't taking care of ourselves, many of those diseases are genetic, and we're not going to be able to stop the onset of the disease, but we can certainly
Yeah,
support the progression of the disease and slow it down. And really, I was talking to someone yesterday who's been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, is now sleeping with compression gloves on. She's like, it's so unattractive, but otherwise, I'm starting to see my limbs being disfigured. And this is someone who's been very healthy their whole life. But because she's always been healthy, she's better able to
yeah,
help with that. So that's the reality of aging as well. And so we don't think about that when we're 20 or 30 or 40, and we just push ahead and we do all this stuff, and we don't take care of ourselves, and it catches up faster.
yeah,
So it is just those simple things like drink water, eat colorful food, try to get something that's exercise and fresh air, read, instead of watching again, there's times to watch mind numbing television, but it's also, and again, having just done a master's, I read a lot of books, but you always get something out of a book. And sometimes I'll just read 2 or 3 pages. I don't have to read a whole book,
right.
but, just 2 or 3 pages of a book about, something. I'm reading a book right now called Joyful. Great, but I've only read about 40 pages in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but because every page offers something, right?
yeah,
So I think that it's, we get like one house to live in, right? So I'm never going to be skinny. Strong but fluffy is my personal hashtag. So, um, but I would rather be able to, I want to just be healthy so that when somebody says, do you want to go and hike a mountain, I can say yes.
right. Uh, do you know Janine Cliff with Four Seasons?
I do not, but I'm going to want to now, right?
Um, she was on the show earlier in the year. She's been pretty instrumental in helping Four Seasons stand up a lot of their wellness initiatives, like forest bathing. Now they have desert bathing.
Love it. Yeah. All about the bathing.
But her thing was you have to take care of your vessel. And the fact that, when you do fitness, when you do workouts, when you get moving, let's just leave it at moving. It doesn't matter what it is.
Doesn't.
You are taking control of your own destiny, let alone you are then those hormones that get released can fight anxiety, can fight depression, can
Yeah.
fight stress.
And in fact, if you don't have those hormones being released, you can't fight any of those things.
Right. And that continued stress, that stress from a workout is actually good for your body because it trains it how to fight things. That's
Yeah.
why people who are active tend to fight off. I mean, we saw it with COVID. Like the people who are,
never had COVID.
I never tested positive for COVID.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I ever never got it.
Okay, I'll go with that. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Same.
because there was a couple times I got sick and I tested,
Yeah, same.
negative result. So yeah, well, here's
Yeah.
to being unicorns, because
Exactly.
we're like we're a very small percentage.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for sharing what you do and your ridiculous leg press routine. Um,
Once a week.
it was a strong flex. Good job. Like actually, literally strong flex. Um, so with that, let's talk about IMEX, because I've been coming here for a while.
Yeah.
This was I believe it was my 7th year coming. So I'm curious how the wellness initiatives have grown in adoption and in activation and whatnot. I specifically asked about the Be Well Lounge because last year I came as a hosted buyer and I had access to the Be Well Lounge.
Everybody has access always.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I didn't see it this year, but I don't know if that's because I was just doing other things. But anyways, I'd love to talk about the kind of journey IMEX has taken on wellness and what it's been like.
So IMEX this year we did not have a Be Well Lounge, and it's for a lot of reasons, but mostly because the amount of people who use the Be Well Lounge versus the cost of the Be Well Lounge didn't make sense. That was the first thing. So we looked at that and said we could basically send everybody for a massage at the hotel for less. So that's
I would have been fine with that.
right. So
It would have been totally okay.
yeah, but again, just numbers wise, it didn't make sense. But we're not about numbers. We're about what's the experience. And so we started to just really look at what is well-being. So well-being mostly is about belonging. Where do I belong? How do I fit into my community? So if we look at where do we fit into our community, well, we have a lot of people here who come from different kinds of communities and different kinds of backgrounds and have different needs and interests. Okay, so what is well-being to one person is not going to be the same. So
yes, 100%.
So, yeah, so going into a Be Well Lounge and doing yoga, great for some people and not interesting for other people. So then we said, okay, so what do people need? And then we started doing a lot of work with the Google XI community. And so they decided, as part of their activation, they had an activation as part of the Inspiration Hub that brought, we had everything from an opening ceremony with Reverend Amaya Jaguar to energizers with the party scientists to musical things. And so we're like, okay, so this is going to be a lot of our um, emotional well-being and thinking about how neurodivergent learners need support is going to happen on that space. Okay, that's one piece of it. Where are people going to go for their quiet time? So just outside of the show floor, there was 2 quiet spaces. So there was a quiet space that just had chairs kind of, similar to this size. You could just sit, be quiet, do your work if you wanted to, or just have a few moments. And beside that was the resilience room. The resilience room was built with Eventwell, which is a group out of the UK, with, weighted blankets and quiet music. And it was out down the hall a little bit farther, in a quieter space.
Like before you got to the encore stuff that was going on? Like down that direction?
Just outside of that space,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
And so it was a lovely space to just really go but really designed for that truly neurodivergent, where you really need to have that introversion time.
Right.
So that was just outside as well. So that was, probably the closest thing to a replacement for the quiet space in the Be Well Lounge. So we did have the same sort of physical space as that. And then we also had, in both the hosted buyer lounge and on the show floor, there was massage available, so that anybody could access that. There was water stations throughout.
Yeah,
so we had water stations all the way throughout the space.
Which is great because we're in Vegas and
it's dry. It's a desert.
Yes,
and you're inside. It's air conditioning. Yeah.
Right, and it's Vegas, so buying water is $30 a liter.
Yeah, it doesn't even make any sense. So water everywhere. And then we had 3 concession areas inside. And our ops team worked very, very closely with the Mandalay Bay team to come up with options that were just for really every need. So if you were dairy-free, if you were gluten-free, if you were allergic to things, but also very nutritious options. And
I didn't see a lot of beige.
There was not. It was lots of really good options.
The plates were beige.
That was
because they were like recycled bamboo or something.
Yeah. That's true.
And the forks
Everything
were beige.
everything was everything was recyclable and compostable,
Yeah.
and so we have I mean, there's the waste diversion that we do in partnership is just phenomenal.
Yes.
But there's lots and lots and lots of ways, because the thinking was you arrive with your whole self, right? You don't just arrive with your thirsty self or your emotional self. You arrive with a whole self. So how can we provide? And then we also had a well-being wheel where we offered sessions on two. So basically, we took the wheel and divided it like a pie, so into three pieces. And so two parts had well-being sessions, and there was emotional intelligence, there was menopause, there was fitness, there was health and nutrition, there was Ayurvedic thinking, all of that happening all the time.
By the way, we should touch on that for just a
Yeah.
second, but please keep going.
We also had personal coaching. So Mari and Carmen both offered personal life coaching and wellness coaching that people could make appointments for and do one-on-one appointments with them. And then we also had a VR well-being space with a group called Novo Being so you put on your VR headset and go on a wellness journey that only took about 10 minutes. So you didn't have to take a lot of time out to kind of reset yourself. So so we just looked at, instead of having one space you could go to, we looked at how do you create this. At one point somebody said, there's no well-being this year. Somebody's like up in arms. And then I sent a list of the 17 things that we were doing. And they're like, oh, okay, there's, and Carmen Biscolo, who's an Ayurvedic practitioner locally, wrote a beautiful well-being piece that's available as well through the IMEX.
Yes. So that was the first time I had heard this term. How do you pronounce it?
Ayurvedic.
Ayurvedic.
Yeah.
So Ayurvedic is evidence-based things. So I sat in on one of her sessions when she was talking about when you get up in the morning about using a tongue scraper, and like she was going through a number of things. It's some of it are things that are probably things you've heard of from people who don't know the evidence behind it.
Yes.
They've just read something online and they're like, oh, this seems cool. I'm going to put my crystal wherever.
It is thousands of years old thinking.
Yes, it is that kind of thing, but the evidence behind it, which I found really interesting. I'm going to see if she'll sit down with me at some point and
I'm sure she will.
Be on the show. So yeah, it sounds like there was a lot going on. And then there was also the run.
There was the run, there was the PCMA hit on the first morning, and there was yoga, I think, on the final morning, poolside. So yeah, there was something every morning that was early for people. And then there was things that people could do all throughout the whole day. And then we actually ended up with a closing parade where we were skipping down the aisles. So that was fun, led by Jacques, the party scientist.
I saw that while we were helping someone in a booth. How has participation changed in those things? Are you seeing more people get engaged and involved as it diversifies because it becomes more approachable?
I mean, every time that I looked over at those spaces, there was people actively involved in listening and intently trying to do things. So, and if you just take away one tiny thing that can make you a emotionally, mentally, physically stronger human, that's great. Hecka Health also this year had more than 900 participants, which was more than double we've ever had in the Hecka Health Challenge. So,
yes, I got some of those stats yesterday.
Yeah.
That is going to be in December's episode.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
As well as little teaser. So Rachel Riggs is going to be the next guest. We talked about the app.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I grilled her, but I did ask some questions, and she's like, "These are all great things," and because I was like, "It seems like we're missing some things," and she said, "Well, we wanted to drive adoption first before we dug into starting to add things on, and by keeping the barrier to entry down here, you can drive that adoption." Which, by the way, if you're a software designer, you probably are, or an app designer, you probably know that. But keeping the instrument easy and that barrier to entry simple drives all kinds of people to participate, and then you can start offering additional things because then you have a community of people who are using it. Because yeah, I asked them, like, why isn't sleep on there? Why isn't workouts on there? Why blah, 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 blah.
But yeah, let's just start with the thing they have to do when they got here, which is walk.
Because they don't have a choice because it's
They
Vegas.
don't have a choice. It's Vegas, and the show is big.
Yeah, it was
Like there's
very big.
3,000 exhibits or something crazy on the floor. So yeah.
Yeah. Any predictions or crazy thoughts of what you may want to do? These aren't commitments, but like ideas that are swirling around of like, oh, I wonder, we may want to do this or whatnot. Like, what are you thinking in terms of wellness potentially for next year, or that something that you would love to see someone incorporate at their event?
So we just announced the talking point next year for IMEX, which is impact.
Okay.
And so it's, thinking about how do you have impact on the world? So how do you have a positive impact that is going to help you, but also help somebody else? And I think that, again, if we're not healthy ourselves, we can't help somebody else be healthy.
Yes.
It's true. And so I will tell you that I'll close with a story from when we did the Site Global Conference earlier this year. So we, at the beginning of the year in January, so when I left Site, I left with a long overlap, joined IMEX, and there was a period of time that I was doing both. Very transparent. Site and IMEX were both fully aware I was doing things with both of them. There was no, but when I left Site, I stayed in for 6 months and finished up all of the events that we had on the books as we transitioned and brought Jacqueline on, who's amazing. But she was very clear when she started that education wasn't her area of expertise. And so I stayed for another 6 months. And so in January, my daughter called and said, I have a reading break in February. Like, you should take me somewhere. And so and it was in her 5th year of university. And I said, oh, I'm going to be in New York that week. You can come to New York and work because we actually need some people to do work. And then we'll pay you, you know, less than we're paying a lot of other people probably, but you can do Reg Desk and you can do some other things. And then as we got closer to the Site Global Conference, it was 800 people coming to New York.
Wow.
And so at one point, so we looked at the education and and Aaron, the education manager, said, we have like this period of time, we need some more sessions because we don't have enough actual seats in these rooms for all of the people who are going to be here who might want to participate in education. And so I added some sessions, called some people, had some friends come. And so one of the sessions that we added, we looked at like what are our small gaps that we still want to fill. And so one of those was, so we called it Running as Fast as You Can. And so it's about how we're just, now we're back after the pandemic and we're all just like, right? And so we had Etta, who is from Turkey and is a working mother, managing director of a DMC agency there with a young child. And we had Ken, who has been around the industry for a long time, has been on a very long wellness journey through the pandemic. And I said, I really wish that I could have somebody who knew a lot about health, but the science of health, and not just I can have a yoga and almonds. And so I'm like, oh, wait, I'm bringing somebody who has a 5-year degree in health. So I called Ken and Etta and said, I'm thinking of putting my daughter with you. Would you be open to that? And here's why. And within minutes, from the other side of the world, they both said, yeah, absolutely. So they do their call. And so Julie's like, oh, we did our speaker call. I'm like, how was that? She said, well, it's really nice. They're like so nice. And we started talking about this session and what we're going to bring to it. And I asked them, if they had a plan for how it would roll out. And they were like, oh, and then she's like, here's my plan. And she's like, they both just started laughing. And I was really worried. And they both started laughing because he said, first your mother organizes us. But they did this. So they do the session, and it was a dialogue den session. So it was meant to be very interactive. And so at one point I wasn't in the room. And what happened is that somebody stood up and they said, I'm here, but I'm feeling really guilty. I've been away for 11 days, my 8 and 11-year-old, first time that we've been away, especially with, and so, so Etta gave her, working mother response to that. And then Julia said, would you like the kid response? And everyone's like, yeah, absolutely. And so at this point, there's a number of people in the room that know she's my daughter, but most of the room doesn't know that. And so she's, her response was, over the course of my life, my parents worked really hard. My dad often, had 2 jobs and was working weekends as well as during the week. There's another whole reason for that. But, my mom was an event producer. And so she was, there's like lots of 80-hour weeks or travel around the world. Or, when we were small, there was a month in China when she worked on the Olympics. And she said, so what, I never felt like I was neglected. We always felt like, we got to do all the things that we were doing as kids, all of our activities. And we had Skype and we had, things to stay connected. And she said, but I also think that, we had amazing experiences that my friends didn't get to have because we got to go places around the world with our parents.
Right.
And at the end of the day, she said, it's that work ethic that they showed me that's allowed me to go and work and go to university and start doing the things that I'm doing as I'm building my life. And my phone blows up. Everybody just like, what? Just like, your daughter's amazing, but and you don't need to feel guilty because this is what she just said. And so like, so nice, right?
Yeah.
Pictures and video. And then at the end of the session, I went in, of course, because now you need to see what's going on. And so they all do their closing comments, and her closing comments were my 23-year-old sitting on a stage saying to an audience of event professionals, I just, her closing comments where you need to, just think about, setting your intentions for the day. You're all leaders in this room. She said, you're all leaders, and you need to think about how you are showing leadership and allowing space for the people that work with you to have bad days and to have mental health concerns and to be able to know that they're in an environment where they're going to be supported, and to set your own intentions for the day so that you can have every day having your most positive experience. And I was just like, so
Well done.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, it turns out that all of that, all those years of guilt, it's okay. It's all worked out. And I have, an amazing family, and I'm really so fortunate for that. So, who understand that it's okay to have bad days too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
clearly you've left an impact on her.
And and she'll have a continued impact on many people
Right.
around her. And so if we can all, whether we're doing CSR projects or making sure people have water, whatever it is, we have a lot of, in events, we have a lot of opportunity to have impact. And so it's good. I'm working on a second book, by the way.
Oh,
KPI of Joy.
you're just going to dump a bunch of stuff into a Google Doc and.
That's what I've been doing. No, I'm basing it on my thesis. But it's how do we use live events to catalyze happiness, but happiness from the idea of the United Nations World Happiness Index, through all of the work that's being done on organizational well-being, to how as individuals we can find our own space.
You've heard of Bhutan, right?
Yeah.
Where their GDP is happiness.
Their GDP is happiness.
Yeah.
But did you also know that Abu Dhabi has Ministry of Happiness?
I did not know that.
And the UK has Ministry of Happiness, and that there are 145 of the world's 195 countries have spent the last 12 years being graded on their happiness.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's all out there, right? So
yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
I know someone who's been to Bhutan, and she said it was transformative.
It's a carbon sinkhole, the only carbon sinkhole in the world, and Slovenia is the only country in the world that's B positive. There's so many amazing stories out there. So,
okay. What we can do to kind of wrap up is I like to do some hot takes.
Okay. No pressure.
No pressure, and you can say whatever you want. It's only being recorded and put on the internet, so no big deal.
Perfect.
So
don't pick my nose.
So if it's on the internet, it's probably not true anyway. So you can say whatever.
Oh my God, it's a fair point.
Okay, so I asked 2 questions, and it's, what is something that we need to do more of or see more of, and what is something that's got to go away? What's something that we just got to knock off?
We need to knock off continental breakfasts. Big pile of nothing, gives you nothing for the day.
So one of the studies I'm still looking forward to seeing, and I'm hoping if I keep talking about it, someone will send it to me, but I keep Googling and I'm not finding it. There was an engineer I used to work with at the last startup I was at, and he told me that any morning he shared that he suffers from ADD and ADHD pretty bad. And he said anytime in the morning when he either has a high protein breakfast or a protein shake, he doesn't have to take his meds. And I was like, that sounds awesome. That's an incredible thing to remind people that continental breakfast is then pure evil at that point. Especially because you don't know you don't put in your pre-event survey, hey, do you suffer from ADHD? Let alone you can't even ask that. So having protein on your breakfast is a way to help those people.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to find any like peer-reviewed, evidence-based stuff yet. So far, I've just kind of found some anecdotal stuff. So if you hear of anything, please share it. But I agree wholeheartedly. Continental breakfast, be gone. Let alone it's usually a lot of beige.
It's all beige. It's just it basically gives you this blood sugar spike that you don't recover from for the whole day.
Right.
So.
And then you're useless in your sessions.
The other thing that I learned from Julia was that I only started drinking coffee after I had children. Anyhow, now I love it. But don't, and I, for years and years and years, you get up, you have coffee, and then you have that afternoon slump. If you don't drink coffee or tea, whatever has caffeine in it, for the first about 60 minutes of your day, have some water, have whatever, and then have your first coffee or tea, you will not get that same slump in the afternoon. And it's the easiest science. So when we wake up in the morning, we have a rush of adenosine, and adenosine is the neurochemical that lets us sleep, lets our body rest, lets our body restore. But when we wake up in the morning, you have about an hour that it needs to release from your body, and caffeine blocks it. But adenosine is very strong. So what happens if you have coffee first thing is that it blocks it, so the adenosine doesn't get released. But during the day it dissipates, and it releases at about 2 or 3 in the afternoon because it has to release.
Right.
And then you get that slump.
Huh.
So if the only thing that you changed was to not have caffeine in the first 60 minutes, your every afternoon for the rest of your life will be entirely different.
Interesting. So there was another guest that we were telling you about, the Dr. Jess Garza. I think that problem is a 1-2 punch that actually makes it worse. So she talked a lot about your circadian rhythm, basically when the best time to learn and when the best time to do and when the best time to lift and when the best time to do cardio and whatnot. And in that same time zone, in your circadian rhythm, is your postprandial dip. So as it is, your brain is already going to suffer at that time of day. So if you're doing it, that's a twofer, because those hormones are attacking your brain that's already like, okay, I need a little rest. So that makes perfect sense why you get like sleepy. Don't get me wrong though, I really enjoy like a 2:30 like 15-minute power nap.
I don't know why we don't have that actually built into every day.
We should add that to the agenda. There should be like a nap area.
Resilience room.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, note to self. Yeah. Okay, so get rid of continental breakfast. Don't ever serve it again. You're committing content suicide and driving your ROA through the ground.
Yeah, pretty much.
What do we need to do more of?
Walking meetings, fresh air, anything that's biophilic, anything that we can do to bring in sense of joy and color and life into events.
All right. Perfect. Well, that's it. I still can't believe you sat down with me this morning. Thank you so much. I feel very, very honored.
Let me just have more of my green tea.
Yeah. That's a wrap.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you for a great conference. I look forward to next year.
Thank you so much for joining Return on Wellness. For help integrating these ideas, please scan the QR code. We sincerely hope you join us for our next episode of Return on Wellness.
I'm going to commit to you now, right now. I will be here and we can do all the things that we wanted to do this year, including that potential push-up competition.
Potential push-up competition.
Okay.
I mean, there's going to be at least 2 of you there.
Oh, and now DJ Graffiti is in on it too.
Okay.
Like he was standing around yesterday.
So 3 of us.
Like before my session, and he's like, I haven't done any push-ups today. Maybe I'm going to do something right now.
I'm going to tell you, when we did them last year, when we had Julius doing those morning energizers with DJ Graffiti, the only person that could actually do a decent push-up was Anka.
Yeah.
The rest were sloppy, messy.
That's probably why.
I mean, it was nice that they tried.
That's probably why she wasn't able to beat me last year. No, I'm just poking the bear. Okay, so yeah, well, so there will be a push-up competition, and then
it's good. I have a year to train.
Yeah, who knows? You might be at 11, or you might be at 100.
I definitely will not be at 100.
You never know.
I have a whole arm thing. No, I'm not even going to try for 100.
You didn't think you could do 10,
I'm
probably.
going to try for 19. How's that? Seems like a lot. Why did I say that? I take that back. Retract.
Cut it. Get it out. Okay, perfect.
Let's
Awesome.
close there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.